an InvestView company.
Hey, welcome back. I say it's a Freaky Friday because it's a nice alliteration. But it's kind of a freaky show today because we've been all over the map. Health and wellness, sobriety, news of the day, Turkey, Iran, all kinds of different things. Impeachment, we mix it up. And it just almost drives you to a point of insanity that I try to break up the monotony sometimes. But when we're getting to near insane, we bring in a top-notch psychologist. Dr. John Hubert joins us today. John, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
So much craziness going on out there, you know, in the political atmosphere and environment. It's so tense. And I was talking earlier about how these kids, they call them snowflakes, and they need safe spaces, and you know, the sensory overload maybe on children with phones and all this other stuff. But I actually went to dinner the other night with my two daughters, Victoria and Ava, and they said, you know, Daddy, are we getting bombed by Iran, right?
Absolutely.
And the kids, you know, they're 21 and 20 and 18, right around there. Ava's going to be 18, Tori's going to be 21. But that they don't consume news like the rest of us maybe, and they're thinking like, oh my God, are we getting attacked? Like here, what can parents do to make the kids feel better or grandkids better? Like what are some things to like ease that anxiety?
Well, you have to realize a few things. You know, we're not in a 24-hour news cycle anymore. We've gone to this 15-minute news cycle with social media, and they're getting inundated 24 hours a day, every 15 or 20 minutes. And the news outlets are getting paid by click-throughs. So they have these bullet headlines, each one of those worse than the next one, just trying to get that click-through. So what happens is they're getting pounded by death and destruction, especially about this whole Iranian thing, and it's scaring them. But that's how they drive that dollar bill, that click-through, is through that emotionality. So talk to your kids, even your adult kids, about taking a break from that type of media and watch shows like this, you know, news shows like this, or you know, your 5 o'clock, 10 o'clock news hour. And the rest of the day, take a break from it. You know, give yourself some time out. That's one of the most important things you can do, as well as stay in your routine. You know, if you normally go to the gym every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, go every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and realize that if we're under attack, that national alert system is going to let you know long before a news outlet's going to do it anyway. So you don't need to be watching on top of those.
You're the chairman of Mainstream Health.
Mainstream Mental Health, yes.
And mental health. And you know, a little bits of this stuff like anxiety and stuff, maybe you just get a little depressed or pulled back, you don't go to the gym, and then you start a domino effect where it actually starts to affect your actual physical health.
Oh, absolutely. Increased heart rate, blood pressure, risk for strokes, even at a very young age, especially with all the energy drinks we're doing. You know, an energy drink can boost your chances for a stroke up to 500%. So just think of a 20-year-old who's doing energy drinks every single day, and then they're stressed out with this, and then they go to the gym and they're trying to max out on their squats or bench press. They're actually looking at trouble. We see it at the hospitals I work at all the time. People walking in that are young, too young to be having strokes.
We don't have the working out issue, but we drink a lot of the wrong things. He prefers bubbly.
I do. Well, exactly. I'm going to have one in the next commercial break. But Dr. Hubert,
yes,
I do think it's important to point out that whether it's Iran, whether it's climate change, whether it's all these mass shootings, that there are a lot of things that we see in the news that are worth worrying about, right? I mean, it's not an unnatural reaction to see something on the news and say, oh, I'm worried about my kids and myself.
Well, absolutely. You should be worried about that. You should have a basic game plan. You know, just like if you have a fire in the house, you should have a plan that you're going to meet by the tree down by the street. You know, so you know if everybody hasn't gotten there within 3 or 4 minutes, somebody's still inside. So you need to have a logical plan, but you don't need to be driven by that fear throughout your everyday life. That's what's going to cause that increased anxiety, that increased stress, and you can actually get post-traumatic stress disorder even though you haven't experienced that stress. You're physiologically going through that, and that can be very problematic.
So it's not healthy to watch 18 hours a day of cable news.
Absolutely, unless they're watching you, John.
Yeah. Well, we're only on for 2
hours. So 2 is good. You got to tune in a little earlier for American Agenda, and you got to tune in a little after right here on Newsmax for a great new show called National Report with Bob Sellers and Allison Maloney. But I want to ask you this.
Okay.
Years ago, I was looking at a business. I've been on Wall Street for 25 years, and I was doing some research on the car buying experience, right? And
Absolutely.
80% of the people polled, and really serious, said that was one of the most anxiety, one of the experiences causing the most anxiety. Going to the dealership to buy a new car is like real anxiety.
Absolutely. You know, the only thing that's even close to that is having your mother-in-law over for dinner. So you gotta watch out. You know, it's a pressure sales and it's a game. I mean, you know that.
So the equivalent of drinking 2 Red Bulls and trying to max out on the squats for me and Frankie is taking our mother-in-law to go shopping for a new car. We could blow a gasket there.
Well, you let her go shop for it and you stand off on
We
the side
take
and watch.
one Red Bull, it's over for us. We're in the hospital. But no, I wanted to, the reason I was asking that was on a measure, like if people are feeling anxiety
Right.
about the Iranian attacks in the news, what's the worst, like from a mental standpoint? You're one of the biggest psychologists around. What's worse, going to buy a car or reading some news about Iran?
The reality of it is going and buying that car, because you can't do anything about Iran, you know, and we don't even know if they truly have the capabilities to do all the stuff other than those terrorist attacks. So going to that cell, you know, and putting your dollar bill on the line and being stressed out, that's going to affect you. That's your real life. And then you buy a car you don't like, and then you're stuck with it, you know, for the 3 to 6 years you got. That's going to have a much more significant in real life effect on you. So, you know, don't worry about that Iranian thing. That's why we have a military. That's why we have the CIA, the president, the FBI, NSA.
Dr. Huber, recently there was a story that for the first time in a while, American life expectancy actually declined, not because a bunch of old people are dying, but because young people are dying between the age of 25 and 64 because they're killing themselves and they're doing drugs and dying of drug overdoses. What's going on in the minds of young people today that they feel the need in numbers that we haven't seen before to take drugs and to kill themselves?
Well, I think there's some significant things going on with social media and people believing that everything on social media is really how other friends' lives are, and they don't see the struggle that they're having. They just see all the vacations and they sit back and think their life is being horrible too, and they're losing that ability to cope, and they think the only escape they have is that. In fact, the millennial generation, 1 in 5 has attempted suicide. That's 20%. It's the highest in any previous recorded generation ever.
So, Doc, some of our audience members tend to be a lot older than that millennial
Yes.
generation. Some of them are kids of our viewers. Some of them are grandkids of our viewers. Are there any, you know, we've had on people who said, well, the number one signal that someone wants to commit suicide is they tried it once before. But are there any things our viewers could know to create awareness for them, for their kids or their grandkids, if they're so depressed that they're contemplating it?
Well, if you think they're contemplating it, don't be afraid to say, hey, are you thinking about hurting yourself? If you're afraid to say it, they're going to get away with it. And that's what you got to think about. You got to be able to talk about that. And it's a serious thing. Don't criticize them. They go, why, you're crazy. Why would you just, okay, get them help. The next question you should ask them is, do you have a plan? What's the plan you're going to do? And if they have an organized plan, even remotely possible, that's when you go get them help. Call up a psychologist, take them to the emergency room. Every emergency room doctor has been trained in doing that assessment. It's a simple thing. Don't be afraid to ask them about it.
Frankie, we talked about it last week. I think it was New Jersey or somewhere where, you know, you basically can't force an adult, right, to get mental help.
Well, and it's in a lot of places, including New York, where there's they were trying to. We spoke with DJ Jaffe, who's the author of the book Guilty by Reason of Insanity,
Yes.
who says that we need to make broader use of things like Kendra's law. To, if people are dangerously mentally ill, that they should be incapacitated, they should be institutionalized, even if it's without their consent.
Well, and we have a judicial process for that, because we have to have a right to defend ourselves in due process.
Fantastic. Dr. John Huber, thank you so much for joining us on Liquid Lunch. Thank you for sticking with us while we breeze right through hour 2. We're going to take a quick break. Do not go anywhere. Watch these commercials. Buy some vitamins, nutraceuticals, whatever is up next. If nothing else, stay right there for a lot more of a Freaky Friday Liquid Lunch.